I'm staring at the lawyer's email for the third time, my hands shaking so badly I can barely hold my phone. The number on the screen doesn't make sense. It's impossible. It's cruel. But it's there, in black and white. $850,000. That's what Dad left me. That's what he took away from my brother. My little brother Brandon. The one who actually deserved it. I slam the phone down on the kitchen counter and run my hands through my hair. Sarah, my wife, looks up from her laptop. We're in the kitchen of our house in Pleasantville, New Jersey, the one we've been paying off for 8 years, the one Dad helped us with the down payment on, the one that suddenly feels like it was built on a lie. "What's wrong?" Sarah asks, setting down her coffee. I can't answer, not yet, because I don't even understand it myself. Let me back up. Let me tell you about the good years first, because I need you to understand what we had before everything fell apart. My name is Michael Patterson. I'm 42 years old, and until about 2 hours ago, I thought I had the kind of life people actually want to talk about. I work as a senior project manager for a construction firm in Manhattan. Not glamorous, but solid. $145,000 a year, plus bonuses. Sarah's a pediatric nurse, brings in another $85,000. We've got 2 kids, Emma and Jake, ages 9 and 7. We take them to soccer practice and piano lessons. We do date nights once a month. We own a cabin upstate where we go in the summer. Our 401ks are on track. Our credit score is excellent. Our parents are, or were, the kind of people you feel grateful for. My dad, Robert Patterson, was a contractor himself, made good money over 40 years, retired at 65 with a pension and a portfolio his financial advisor managed. He was the kind of guy who showed up to Emma's school play and helped me fix the deck when it started rotting. He wasn't perfect. He could be controlling sometimes, critical of the way I did things. But he was Dad. And Brandon, my little brother by 5 years, he was the family fuck-up. I say that with love, but it's the truth, and everyone knew it. Brandon was brilliant in school, legitimately smart. But somewhere around sophomore year of high school, he just stopped trying. Dropped out of college after 1 semester. Worked at Best Buy for a while, then a car dealership, then nothing for stretches. He had trouble holding down jobs, trouble with relationships. He moved back in with Mom and Dad when he was 35. He was still there last year, working part-time at a hardware store, driving a 2003 Honda Civic with a check engine light that never went off. I had the things you're supposed to have, the achievements, the stability, the respect, or so I thought. Dad had a heart attack last April. The first one wasn't too bad. They caught it early, put in a stent, and he came home after 4 days in the hospital. "I'm fine," he kept saying. "Don't make a fuss." So we didn't. We visited on weekends. Sarah brought him casseroles. I helped him walk around the block to build his strength back up. He seemed okay. Then he had the second one in September. This one was bigger. He made it to the hospital, but barely. Spent a week in the ICU. The doctor said his heart was failing, that he'd need to be more careful, that lifestyle changes were critical. He came home on a Monday. I picked him up. Sarah was working, so it was just me. He was gray. Actually gray, like someone had drained the color out of him. His hands looked fragile. I remember being struck by that detail, the way his wedding ring hung loose on his finger. "You're going to be okay," I told him, not because I believed it, but because he needed to hear it. "Yeah," he said quietly, "I'm going to be okay." He wasn't. He died in his sleep on December 14th. A heart arrhythmia, the coroner said. He was 74 years old. I got the call at 6:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because I looked at the clock when the phone rang, some stupid part of my brain cataloging the moment everything changed. The funeral was the week before Christmas. 300 people showed up. Everyone had a story about Dad, how he'd helped them build a deck, or a fence, or a garage, how he was reliable, how he always showed up. Brandon gave a speech, a good one actually. He cried. I stayed composed. That was the difference between us, even then. He fell apart. I held it together. Dad had a will. Of course he did. His lawyer, Martin Sheffield, contacted us about a week after the funeral. A formal email, very professional. There was an estate to settle. Nothing complicated. The house, some investments, his truck, his tools. Mom was still alive then, so most of it went into a trust for her benefit. After she passed, the remainder would be divided equally between Brandon and me. That's what the will said. Equal, fair, 50-50. I never thought about it much after that. I was grieving. Sarah was managing the household, the kids were confused and sad, the holidays were surreal and hollow. Life kept happening, the way it does, and I gradually stopped thinking about Dad's estate and started thinking about Christmas shopping and getting back to work. But then this morning, I got the email from Martin Sheffield. Not the official paperwork, just a note saying he needed to discuss something with me before the final distribution. Could I meet with him this week? Something in the tone made my stomach tight. I called him back immediately. Michael, I'm glad you reached out, he said. This is a bit delicate, and I wanted to speak with you before we move forward with the final paperwork. What's going on? I asked. Your father made a change to his will, Martin said carefully, about 4 months before he passed. He came in and met with me. He was very clear about what he wanted, and he was of sound mind. I documented that carefully, given his health situation. What kind of change? He revised the distribution. Instead of splitting the estate equally between you and your brother, he left you the entire remainder after your mother's estate is settled, the full amount. After taxes and probate, you're looking at roughly $850,000. The words didn't compute. I'm sorry, what? He specifically excluded your brother from the inheritance. I remember sitting down. I remember my legs not working properly. I remember thinking, this has to be a mistake. This has to be wrong. Why would he do that? I asked. He didn't explain his reasoning in detail, Martin said, but he was quite firm about it. He said Brandon would understand. Those were his exact words. Brandon will understand why this is necessary. Can he do that? Legally? Yes, he was the testator. It's his money, his property. He can leave it to whoever he wants. There's no legal obligation to divide equally between children in New Jersey. It's unusual, certainly, but it's completely legal. I thanked him and hung up. And then I just sat there, staring at nothing, while my brain tried to make sense of what I'd just heard. Dad had given me everything, and he'd given Brandon nothing. And the worst part? I had no idea why. I can't call Brandon yet. That's the first thought that hits me, concrete and terrifying, as I sit in my car in the parking lot of the Starbucks near my office. It's been 2 hours since Martin Sheffield hung up. 2 hours of existing in a state of static, unable to move, unable to think clearly. If I call him right now, my voice will give everything away. He'll hear the guilt in it, the shock, the knowledge of what Dad did to him. So instead I sit here, engine off, steering wheel cold under my palms, and I try to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do with $850,000 that I never earned, that I never wanted, that was supposed to be his. My phone buzzes. It's Sarah. You okay? You've been gone almost 3 hours. Didn't you have a meeting at 9? I didn't. I don't remember what I was supposed to be doing today. Work feels like something that happened to someone else, in a different timeline. Had to take care of something with Dad's estate, I text back, heading to the office now. It's a lie. I'm sitting in a parking lot, gripping my steering wheel like it's the only solid thing in a world that just turned liquid. The thing about Brandon is that he's not a bad person. People assume that because he dropped out of college, because he's been unemployed, because he lives in the same house he grew up in, that he's somehow deficient, a failure. But he's not. He's just different. He's always been different. When we were kids, he was the one who cried at movies. He was the one who volunteered at the animal shelter. He was the one who tried to fix things when they were broken, not because he was good at it, but because he cared that they were broken. Dad never got that. Dad was practical, results-oriented. He built things that made money, and he respected people who did the same. Brandon built nothing, earned nothing. And Dad looked at him the way you look at a piece of equipment that's broken beyond repair. But I looked at him the way our father did too. I'll admit that now. I pitied him. I was grateful, in some small, shameful way, that I wasn't him. And now Dad has given me everything, and given Brandon nothing. And the worst part is, I think I understand why. I understand it, and I don't know what to do about it. My phone rings. It's Mom. My mom, Linda Patterson, who is 71 years old and lives in the same house Dad died in, surrounded by his tools and his clothes and the ghost of a marriage that lasted 47 years. Michael? Honey? Her voice is small, scared. Hi, Mom. What's wrong? Brandon's here. He's very upset. He says the lawyer called him. He says your father left everything to you. Is that true? My stomach drops. I didn't think about this. I didn't think about the fact that Brandon would find out from Martin Sheffield, not from me. I didn't think about him being at the house, at Mom's house, getting the news like an afterthought. Mom, Is it true? She asks again, and this time her voice is sharper, angry. Yes, but I don't understand it either. Dad made changes to the will 4 months before he died. I just found out this morning. There's a pause, long enough that I can hear my mother breathing, can hear her processing, can hear her deciding whether to believe me or whether to think I'm lying. Your brother is crying, she says quietly. He's sitting in the living room and he's crying. Do you know what he was doing yesterday? He was helping your father's old boss, Tom Henderson, build a deck. Tom didn't want to pay him, said he'd do it for free because he was doing it for Dad, to help the family. Your brother worked 8 hours in the cold for nothing, Michael. For nothing. Because he wanted to help. I know. I don't know what I mean. I didn't know about the will change, Mom. I swear to you. You need to come here, she says. You need to come here right now and explain to your brother why your father loved you more. She hangs up. I sit in the Starbucks parking lot for another 5 minutes, just breathing, in and out, in and out. People walk past my car, going inside for their lattes and their phone calls. Normal people with normal problems. People whose fathers didn't just demolish their family from beyond the grave. Then I start the car and drive to my parents' house. It takes 40 minutes from where I am, cutting through suburban New Jersey, past the strip malls and the elementary schools and the developments that all look identical. I know this drive in my sleep. I've made it 100 times since Dad died. To help Mom with bills, to check on the house, to pick through Dad's belongings and decide what to keep. The house is a colonial from 1987, 4 bedrooms, brick and shutters, sitting on a 1/4 acre in the neighborhood where everyone's yard looks exactly like everyone else's. It was always a point of pride for Dad. He'd built a good life here, solid, respectable, a place where things made sense. I pull into the driveway and see Brandon's Civic in front of the garage, that check engine light glowing like a beacon in the afternoon sun. When I walk into the house, the first thing I hear is my mother in the kitchen, moving things around with more force than necessary. Pots, pans, the refrigerator door slamming. The sound of a woman trying to stay busy so she doesn't have to think about what's happening in her living room. And in the living room, Brandon is sitting on the couch, the same couch Dad died on, actually, though we don't talk about that. And his face is destroyed. He looks up when I come in. His eyes are red and swollen. There's snot on his upper lip that he hasn't bothered to wipe away. He looks 9 years old. He looks like someone just told him the world isn't fair, and he's only just now believing it. "Did you know?" he asks. His voice is hoarse. "No," I say. "I found out this morning from the lawyer." "You're lying." He says it without heat, just stating a fact. "You have to be lying. There's no way Dad did this without telling you." "I'm not lying. I didn't know." Brandon stands up, and for a second I think he's going to hit me. But instead he just walks past me into the kitchen, where Mom is still making noise with the pots. "Linda," he says. He calls Mom by her first name sometimes when he's upset, which kills me every time. Tell him you believe him." Mom doesn't answer. She's got her back to us, and her shoulders are shaking. She's crying, which is almost worse than Brandon's anger. "Mom," I say. "I don't know what to believe," she says without turning around. "I don't understand what your father was thinking. I don't understand any of this." "The lawyer said Dad told him I would understand why," Brandon says. "That I would understand why I'm worth nothing. Why everything I am isn't enough." "That's not what he meant," I say. But even as the words come out, I know they're worthless. "Then what did he mean?" Brandon turns to face me now. "Explain it to me, Michael. Explain why my father left me nothing. Explain why he looked at me and decided I didn't deserve anything." I can't. I stand there in the kitchen of the house I grew up in, surrounded by the ghosts of my parents, and I cannot come up with a single thing to say that will make this better. And that's when Brandon says something that breaks open the entire thing. "You want to know the worst part?" His voice is quiet now, defeated. "I thought maybe he'd finally figured out that I was trying, that I was getting better. I thought maybe, finally, I was enough." He leaves before I can respond. I hear him walk to the front door, hear it open and close. When I look out the window, he's sitting in his car, forehead against the steering wheel, shoulders heaving. Mom is still at the sink, still crying. I put my hand on her back and she doesn't move away. "There's something you need to know," she says after a long time. "Something about why your father changed the will." "What?" He didn't tell me either, not directly, but I found some letters. After he died, when I was going through his desk. Letters from Brandon, years of them. He never sent them, they were drafts, rough copies, but they were there. "Letters saying what?" She turns to face me and her eyes are fierce, angry at me, angry at Dad, angry at the entire situation. "Apologies," she says. "Your brother spent years writing apologies to your father, for disappointing him, for not being good enough, for existing the way he exists." She walks past me out of the kitchen, leaves me alone with the weight of what she just said. And I realize, standing in my dead father's kitchen, that I have no idea who my family actually is. That everything I thought was true might be built on a foundation of lies, misunderstandings, and cruelty so casual I never even noticed it. Brandon's car is still outside. The check engine light is still glowing. And I'm standing here with $850,000 that was supposed to be his, trying to figure out how to live with what I've just learned. I need to know what those letters say. I need to understand what Brandon was apologizing for. And I need to find out what Dad really meant when he said Brandon would understand. Because right now, the only thing I understand is that I've been complicit in destroying my brother, and I didn't even know it. I don't call Brandon that night, or the next day. I tell Sarah I need time to process, and she doesn't push. She's good like that, knows when to let me sit with my thoughts instead of trying to talk me through them. But the silence is its own kind of torture. I spend Thursday night going through Dad's desk. Mom left me alone in his study, the room that still smells like his cologne and sawdust. I find the letters Brandon mentioned in a folder labeled Personal. There are 17 of them, dating back 9 years. The earliest one is from when Brandon was 31, living in that apartment in Hoboken for 6 months before moving back home. It starts, "Dad, I'm sorry I'm not who you wanted me to be." I read them all. Each one is a catalog of failures, real and imagined. Apologies for dropping out, apologies for losing jobs, apologies for not being like me. The writing is rough, honest, sometimes angry, but they're drafts. He never sent them. He just wrote them and kept them like evidence of his own worthlessness. The last one is dated 3 weeks before Dad's second heart attack. "I've been trying," it says. "I know you don't believe me, but I have been trying. And I think I'm finally starting to understand that trying isn't enough, that who I am will never be enough for you. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry I exist." I'm sitting in Dad's chair, holding a letter from my brother apologizing for existing, when my phone rings. It's Martin Sheffield.
"Michael, I'm glad I caught you,"
He says.
"I wanted to give you a heads up. Your brother came by my office this afternoon. He's contesting the will."
My stomach drops. He can do that?
"He can try. It's a long shot. Your father was of sound mind. His signature is witnessed. The documentation is solid. But Brandon's arguing that your father was subject to undue influence from you, that you somehow manipulated him into excluding Brandon from the inheritance."
That's insane. I didn't even know about the change.
"I believe you. The problem is, Brandon has a witness."
Someone who claims your father made comments to him about being disappointed in Brandon, about wanting to reward you for being the responsible one. This witness is willing to testify that in his judgment, your father's decision came from his own values and preferences, not from coercion. Who's the witness? I probably shouldn't tell you, but it's your mother. She's prepared to testify on Brandon's behalf. I hang up and sit there in the dark study, surrounded by my father's things, and I understand for the first time what I actually have to do. I drive to the house Saturday morning. Brandon's car is in the driveway. Mom answers the door, looking like she hasn't slept in days. "I need to talk to both of you," I say. "In the living room, right now." Brandon emerges from the kitchen, and he looks worse than before. Thinner, somehow, even though it's only been 4 days. His eyes are red-rimmed and wary. "If you're here to convince me to drop the lawsuit, you can save your breath," he says. I'm not. I sit down on the couch, not where Dad died, but close enough. I'm here to tell you the truth about why Dad changed his will. And I'm going to tell you something I should have said a long time ago. Mom sits on the armchair across from me. Brandon remains standing, arms crossed. "I found your letters," I say, looking at Brandon. "All 17 of them. The ones you never sent. I read every single one." His face goes white. "Those were private." "I know. I'm sorry. But I needed to understand what was happening, what I missed." "You didn't miss anything," Brandon says bitterly. "You just didn't care enough to pay attention." "You're right. I didn't. And that's the problem. That's been the problem our whole lives." I take a breath. Dad didn't give me the money because he loved me more. He gave it to me because he was ashamed of you. And instead of fighting that, instead of telling him he was wrong, I just accepted it. I benefited from it. I was grateful. "So what?" Brandon's voice breaks. "You're here to apologize and make yourself feel better?" "No. I'm here because I've decided to give you the money." The words hang in the air between us. Brandon doesn't move. Mom's hand goes to her mouth. "What?" Brandon says finally. "All of it. The $850,000. It's yours. I'm signing everything over to you, and I'm going to testify that I had nothing to do with Dad's decision, that I didn't know about the change, and that I believe he made it in a moment of weakness and poor judgment." "You're lying," Brandon says, but his voice is uncertain now. "I'm not. I talked to Martin Sheffield this morning. He's going to draw up the paperwork. Once it's signed, the money is yours. You can use it however you want. pay off some debt, get a better car, take time off work, go back to school, whatever you need. Why would you do that? Brandon asks. Because Dad was wrong. And because I've been complicit in his wrongness my whole life, and I'm tired of it. Mom stands up. Michael, you can't do this. That money was left to you. You have a family, a mortgage. We'll be fine. Sarah makes good money. My job pays well. We have savings. We don't need $850,000 to have a good life. Brandon needs it more than we do. Brandon sits down slowly on the edge of the coffee table. This is crazy, he says. You're crazy. I'm not taking your money. It's not my money. It never was. It was supposed to be yours. How do you know that? His voice is small now, almost childlike. How do you know Dad didn't have a good reason? Because he left a letter, I say. I found it in his desk after I found your letters. It's addressed to me, and it explains everything. This is the moment where I'm about to lie. Not technically, but in spirit. I did find a letter from Dad, but it wasn't about the will. It was just a thank you note from years ago, thanking me for helping him build a fence. But Brandon doesn't need to know that. What he needs is to understand that his father's decision came from somewhere understandable, something I can explain. He wrote that he was worried about you, I continue, making it up as I go, that he'd let you down as a father by not pushing harder, by not believing in you enough. He said he was going to try to make it up to you, but he didn't know how. And then he got sick, and he was scared, and he did something stupid, something he regretted. I'm not even sure I believe this, but I'm saying it anyway, because Brandon needs to hear it, and because I'm finally starting to understand that sometimes the truth is less important than the understanding. There was more, I say. He wrote that he wished he could tell you himself, that he wished he could say, I'm sorry, I've been wrong about you. You're not a failure. You're just different, and different isn't bad. You're trying, and that matters. And I love you anyway. Brandon is crying now. Not the angry tears from 4 days ago, but something deeper. Something that's been waiting to come out for years. He didn't write that, Brandon says. But it's not a question. He knows I'm lying. No, I admit, he didn't. But I think he meant it. I think if he'd lived longer, if he'd had more time to think about it, he would have meant it. You can't know that. You're right, I can't. But I know this. I'm not going to let his mistake become your life sentence, and I'm not going to be the person who profits from your pain. It takes another hour of conversation. Brandon arguing, me being firm, Mom finally understanding what I'm doing and moving to support me. By the end of it, Brandon agrees to let Martin Sheffield drop the paperwork. But he also makes me promise something. You have to tell Sarah, he says. You have to tell her before you sign anything. Because this affects her too, and it's not fair to make this decision without her knowing. He's right. He's always been right about the things that matter. That night, I sit Sarah down in our kitchen, and I tell her everything. The will change, the letters, the money, what I'm about to do. She listens without interrupting. When I finish, she's quiet for a long time. Okay, she says finally. Okay, what? Okay, give him the money. You're not angry? Should I be? Your brother's been drowning, and your father just threw him an anchor instead of a rope. Yeah, we could use that money. We could use it. But Brandon needs it more. I kiss her because I love her, and because I'm grateful for her in a way I'm not sure I can articulate. Monday morning, I sign the papers. Martin Sheffield notarizes them in his office in Newark. Brandon signs too, his hand shaking slightly. When it's done, he just stares at the documents like they might disappear if he looks away. What are you going to do? I ask him. I don't know, he says. I honestly don't know. Maybe take a semester at community college. Maybe just breathe for a while. I haven't done that in a long time. You deserve to breathe, I say. He looks up at me, and his eyes are clear for the first time in days. So do you, you know. You've been holding your breath just as long as I have. He's right. I have been. I've been holding my breath since Dad died, maybe longer. Since I was old enough to understand that my father measured love by achievement, and that I was lucky enough to be good at achieving things. that Brandon wasn't, and that made him less. But maybe that was never the truth. Maybe it was just a story we all agreed to believe. The lawsuit is dropped. Brandon doesn't contest the will anymore. And slowly, over the next few months, something shifts in our family. Brandon moves out of Mom's house and gets his own apartment. He enrolls in classes at the community college. He's taking business management, says he wants to maybe start a contracting company someday, do what Dad did, but different, better. Sarah and I are fine. More than fine, actually. Turns out you don't need $850,000 to be happy. You just need to not be lying to yourself about what matters. And I finally understand what my father meant when he said Brandon would understand. He didn't mean Brandon would understand the money. He meant Brandon would understand the sacrifice. That my father knew, in some way I'll never fully comprehend, that giving everything to me would force me to eventually give it to Brandon. That it would force me to finally see him. I was wrong about my brother, and my father, in his own complicated way, made sure I'd figure that out eventually. That's the inheritance that mattered anyway.